What if I told you that some of your most trusted foods, yes, the ones you eat every single day, become harmful simply because of where you store them? I'm not talking about moldy leftovers or expired milk. I'm talking about foods that lose their healing power, change at a chemical level, and silently chip away at your health, just because they're kept in your refrigerator. This isn't fear-mongering, it's science. After over 35 years studying how food interacts with the human body, from the cellular level to long-term disease outcomes, I've noticed a pattern. Seniors with declining gut health, persistent inflammation, or inexplicable fatigue often have one thing in common. They're unknowingly storing the wrong foods in the cold. Most seniors today are told to just refrigerate everything for freshness. But refrigeration was invented for convenience, not biology. Some foods don't just survive the cold, they transform, and not in a good way. Warning why this matters more as you age. As we grow older, our digestive enzymes weaken, nutrient absorption declines, and even the immune response slows. A simple mistake in food storage that a 25-year-old might shrug off can lead to severe inflammation, gut imbalance, or vitamin loss in someone over 60. This isn't about taste, it's about what's happening inside your cells. And while your fridge may look like a safe space, it could be undermining the very nutrients you rely on to protect your brain, your heart, and your immune system. Test tube a word from experience. In clinical practice, I've met patients who couldn't figure out why their cholesterol was rising despite eating healthy, or why their blood pressure was erratic despite taking medication. The missing link: refrigerated garlic, cold-damaged tomatoes, nutrient-stripped bananas. When we fixed their storage methods, their symptoms improved, sometimes dramatically. Magnet what you'll discover in this series. In the upcoming segments, I'll walk you through 9 common foods that should never be refrigerated, backed by decades of research and clinical observation. The science behind how cold temperatures degrade or mutate certain nutrients. Real stories of patients and caregivers who reversed health issues by changing how they stored food. Doctor-recommended methods to store each food for maximum longevity and nutritional value. Hourglass, not done so before you grab that garlic. 1 Potatoes, from comfort food to chemical risk. Let me take you back to one of my elderly patients, Mr. H, a retired teacher in his 70s. He came to me complaining of sluggish energy, unexplained sugar spikes, and occasional digestive discomfort. His diet was clean, no fast food, no soda, and he even cooked his meals daily. But when I asked about how he stored his vegetables, he casually said, "Well, I keep all of them in the fridge, including potatoes." That raised a red flag. Why? Because refrigeration triggers a process in potatoes called cold-induced sweetening. The starch inside them converts into sugars quickly. And when you cook those refrigerated potatoes, especially at high heat like roasting or frying, those sugars interact with amino acids to create a compound called acrylamide, a potential carcinogen. In a 2016 research review from Food Chemistry Journals, acrylamide was linked to increased oxidative stress and DNA damage. And the transformation doesn't take long, just 2 weeks in the fridge, and the sugar content in potatoes can triple. Light bulb doctor's tip: instead of storing them cold, keep potatoes in a cool, dark, and dry place, ideally between 45–50 degrees F. A cardboard box in your pantry works wonders. Most importantly, never store them next to onions. Both vegetables release gases that cause the other to spoil faster. Think of them like distant cousins, related but better kept apart. Bread too. Bread, how refrigeration destroys the comfort of carbs. Bread is sacred in many cultures, especially for seniors. It represents warmth, ease, and familiarity. But what if I told you that refrigeration doesn't preserve bread, it ruins it? The reason lies in a process called starch retrogradation. It's a fancy term, but here's the essence. When you refrigerate bread, the starch molecules rearrange and squeeze out moisture, turning the bread hard and stale in just 2 to 3 days. In a lab analysis I reviewed during a continuing education seminar, bread stored at refrigerator temperatures became 6x firmer than room temperature bread. And even worse, cold storage destroys the natural volatile compounds that give bread its aroma and flavor. That's why fridge-stored bread often tastes like cardboard. A patient example, Mrs. T, an 82-year-old with early-stage cognitive decline, began skipping meals because everything tastes bland. Turns out, her daughter had been refrigerating their artisan loaves to make them last longer. We returned to storing fresh bread in a linen-lined bread box, and suddenly she was back to enjoying toast every morning. Doctor's tip: store bread at room temperature in breathable containers like paper bags or bread boxes. If you need long-term storage, slice and freeze it, then toast directly from frozen. This preserves texture and taste without the stale aftermath of refrigeration. Honey Pot 3. Honey, the healer that does belong in the cold. Honey is a marvel of nature. It's antimicrobial, antifungal, and filled with antioxidants. In fact, honey jars found in Egyptian tombs were still edible after thousands of years. But put that same honey in the refrigerator, and the magic fades. Cold storage causes honey to crystallize rapidly, creating a gritty, unusable mass. Worse yet, every time you open that cold jar, condensation introduces water, which can dilute its antibacterial properties and invite fermentation. According to a report I reviewed from the National Honey Board, honey stored below 50 degrees F can lose up to 35% of its antimicrobial capacity. Test tube clinical insight. I once recommended raw, unfiltered honey to a patient recovering from dental surgery for its wound healing potential, but he refrigerated it, believing it would stay fresh. Within a week, the honey turned cloudy and hardened. It lost its texture, its aroma, and most importantly, its healing power. Doctor's tip: keep honey in a sealed glass jar at room temperature, ideally 64-75 degrees F. If it crystallizes, place the jar in warm water and stir gently. Never microwave it, as that can degrade the delicate enzymes. For seniors, especially those with inflammation or recovering from illness, dark honey is best. It's richer in antioxidants. Brain reflection: what these foods reveal. What connects these three items, potatoes, bread, and honey, is a common myth. Cold equals preservation. But nature, for coffee, from aromatic elixir to damp sponge of contamination. Coffee is more than a beverage. It's a ritual, especially for older adults. That morning cup is often linked with mental clarity, bowel regulation, and emotional grounding. But storing your beans in the fridge, that's the fastest way to ruin both flavor and health benefits. Coffee is extremely porous. When exposed to the cold, humid environment of a refrigerator, it acts like a sponge, soaking up every smell and trace of moisture from surrounding foods. That leftover garlic, last night's tuna casserole, it all seeps into the beans. Case study: one of my longtime patients, Ms. D, a 67-year-old artist, came to me with frequent headaches and digestive upset she linked to coffee. After ruling out major causes, we inspected her kitchen. The culprit: a glass jar of beans stored openly in her fridge door, right next to pickles and onion jam. No wonder her brew tasted off, and her stomach felt worse. Microscope research insight: the Specialty Coffee Association found that refrigerated beans lose up to 60% of their aromatic oils within just 1 week. Those oils contain antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds essential for seniors battling brain fog and oxidative stress. Moreover, condensation from cold air ages the beans prematurely and even promotes mold growth in poorly sealed containers. Light bulb doctor's tip: always store coffee in an opaque, airtight container at room temperature, 60-70 degrees F. Avoid transparent containers. Light also destroys coffee's beneficial compounds. Buy beans in small batches and grind just before use. Want to store long-term? Freeze them in single-use portions. But remember, never refreeze. 5. Garlic from heart hero to moldy menace. Garlic has been treasured for centuries, not just as a culinary staple, but as a natural antibiotic, anti-inflammatory, and cardiovascular protector. But the refrigerator strips garlic of these healing properties and may even introduce risk. When stored cold, garlic tends to sprout quickly. Those green shoots are bitter and irritating to the digestive system, especially in seniors. Worse still, moisture in the fridge promotes mold and mycotoxin development, dangerous substances that can strain the liver and suppress the immune system. DNA, nutritional loss. Garlic star compound is allicin, which provides its antimicrobial and heart-supporting benefits. A controlled study at UC Davis found that over 50% of allicin degrades within 10 days of refrigerated storage. Brain clinical moment. A patient with high blood pressure came to me asking why his usual garlic routine no longer helped his readings. Turned out, he had been pre-mincing garlic and storing it in oil inside the fridge for a week. That's not just ineffective, it's potentially dangerous. This practice can lead to botulism, a rare but deadly foodborne illness. Doctor's tip: store garlic in a mesh bag, bamboo basket, or ceramic jar with ventilation holes. Temperature should be around 60–65 degrees F, in a dry spot away from sunlight and stove heat. Once peeled, use within 7–10 days, but always store fresh bulbs whole at room temperature. Avoid storing garlic in sealed containers, it needs to breathe. Banana 6. Bananas, nature's energy bar, broken by the cold. Bananas are one of the most misunderstood fruits when it comes to storage. Many people toss them in the fridge thinking it slows ripening. It does, but at a terrible cost. Bananas are tropical fruits. Their cells aren't designed to withstand cold exposure. When refrigerated, bananas suffer from chilling injury, where cell walls rupture, enzymes leak, and tissue degradation begins from the inside out. Cross-mark vitamin C loss. In a 2020 study by the Queensland Department of Agriculture, bananas stored below 56 degrees F lost 80% of their vitamin C content in under 5 days. Vitamin C is critical for immune defense, especially in aging adults with declining absorption. Clinical vignette. I remember a diabetic patient who added bananas to his diet for potassium and fiber. But strangely, his blood sugar control worsened. Why? The bananas he refrigerated developed internal fermentation, a subtle but damaging shift that created unwanted sugar spikes and GI distress. Doctor's tip: store bananas at room temperature, ideally 56–70 degrees F. Use a banana hanger to reduce bruising and allow ethylene gas to disperse evenly, crucial for proper ripening. To slow ripening, wrap stems with plastic wrap. Want to extend shelf life? Peel and freeze ripe bananas for smoothies. They retain nutrients and offer a creamy texture without added sugar. Magnifying glass tilted, left under the microscope. Each of these foods, coffee, garlic, and bananas, offer powerful benefits to seniors. Coffee supports cognitive sharpness. Garlic protects the heart and immune system. Bananas replenish electrolytes and support digestion, but those benefits disappear or even reverse when exposed to refrigeration. Reflection. A matter of environment. We often focus on what we eat, but rarely on how we store it. The refrigerator was designed for safety, but not for everything. Understanding how environment changes food chemistry is the next frontier of longevity science. Seven. Onions, from healing bulb to mold factory. Onions are a foundational ingredient in senior nutrition. They support detoxification, offer antimicrobial protection, and are rich in sulfur compounds crucial for liver health. But refrigeration can turn this healing vegetable into a hazard. The problem lies in the refrigerator's high humidity, often over 90%, which onions can't tolerate. The paper-thin skin of onions begins absorbing moisture almost immediately, accelerating mold development and sprouting. Microscope the silent threat, aflatoxins. One of the most dangerous outcomes of cold storing onions is the risk of black mold, which produces aflatoxins, a category of fungal toxins known to damage the liver and potentially cause cancer. These toxins can develop without visible signs and have been found on improperly stored onions even in commercial kitchens. Patient case. A retired chef in his late 60s came to me with persistent nausea and minor liver enzyme elevation. It was alcohol. It wasn't medication. When we traced it back, the source was frequent consumption of onion-laden dishes, made with sprouted or softened onions from his refrigerator. Once he changed his storage habits, symptoms disappeared, and so did the liver stress. Doctor's tip: store onions in a cool, dry, and ventilated area, ideally 45–55 degrees F. Use mesh bags, pantyhose, or bamboo baskets for proper airflow. Keep far away from potatoes, as both release gases that accelerate each other's spoilage. Once cut, onions must be refrigerated, but only if used within 7 days and kept in an airtight glass container. Tomato 8. Tomatoes, the flavor gene killers. Tomatoes aren't just delicious, they're medicinal. They're one of the richest dietary sources of lycopene, a powerful antioxidant linked to lower risks of heart disease, prostate cancer, and cognitive decline. But chilling tomatoes does more than ruin their texture. It shuts down their flavor-producing genes. Yes, you read that right. Refrigeration alters tomatoes at the genetic level. DNA gene deactivation. A pivotal study at the University of Florida found that storing tomatoes below 54 degrees F deactivates hundreds of genes, particularly those responsible for volatile compound synthesis, the very chemicals that make tomatoes taste and smell like, well, tomatoes. Even after returning them to room temperature, these genes don't reactivate. It's permanent. Fire nutrient loss. Refrigeration not only reduces lycopene bioavailability by up to 65%, it also damages the enzymes needed to absorb it, rendering the remaining lycopene ineffective. Brain patient anecdote. One patient, a 74-year-old widow, used to grow tomatoes in her backyard and felt vibrant every summer. In the winter, she switched to store-bought tomatoes she refrigerated and felt her energy drop. We analyzed her dietary antioxidants through a blood test and confirmed that her lycopene absorption had fallen off a cliff. Simply switching back to room-temp tomatoes restored her vitality. Doctor's tip: store tomatoes stem side down at room temperature, 55–70 degrees F, in a bowl out of direct sunlight. Never use plastic bags which trap ethylene gas and speed up spoilage. Overripe: make sauce and freeze it. Cooked tomato products often have higher lycopene availability than raw ones. Avocado 9. Avocados, a nutritional tragedy in the fridge. This one breaks my heart. Avocados are one of the best sources of healthy fats, specifically oleic acid, along with vitamin E, vitamin C, and a host of brain-supportive antioxidants. But refrigeration destroys what makes them exceptional. Here, why. Avocados are sensitive to cold. Once chilled, the fats inside them undergo a chemical reaction called lipid peroxidation, leading to the formation of free radicals, damaging compounds that age your cells and inflame your tissues. Test tube shocking stats. According to research from Stanford University, refrigerated avocados lost up to 90% of their antioxidant activity in just 4 days. That's not just nutrient loss, that's nutrient reversal. They go from anti-inflammatory to pro-inflammatory. Real-life caution. I had a patient recovering from a mild stroke who had switched to avocados as part of his brain support diet. Unfortunately, he had been storing them cold to keep them fresh. After a month, his LDL cholesterol crept up again, and brain fog returned. We discovered that the damaged fats from cold storage were the culprit. Fork and knife with plate texture trauma. Cold triggers an enzyme called polyphenol oxidase, which speeds up browning and breaks down cell walls. The result? Stringy, oily avocados that won't mash, blend, or nourish properly. Light bulb doctor's tip: store unripe avocados at room temperature between 65–75 degrees F. To speed ripening, place in a paper bag with a banana. Once ripe, you can refrigerate them for 2 days max, but flavor and texture will still suffer. To preserve a cut avocado, leave the hidden danger in our fridge. If there's one uncomfortable truth this journey has revealed, it's this: the refrigerator isn't always your friend. Yes, it prevents bacterial growth in meats and preserves dairy. But when it comes to many of the everyday foods we depend on for nutrients, the fridge doesn't preserve them. It transforms them. And those transformations aren't benign. They can strip antioxidants, alter cell structures, encourage mold, trigger inflammatory compounds, and disarm enzymes, all without you noticing a thing until your body feels the long-term effects. DNA aging bodies, different rules. As a physician who has worked with seniors for decades, I can say with certainty, aging changes everything. Your digestive system becomes more delicate. Your liver becomes more selective. Your immune system gets more defensive. Your nutritional needs rise, but your tolerance for food damage drops. That means even small losses, like a 30% drop in vitamin C or a 50% reduction in allicin from garlic, can have real, measurable impacts on your energy levels, inflammation, sleep, and brain function. For a young adult, improperly stored food might just taste off. For a 70-year-old, it could mean chronic fatigue or missed protection from oxidative stress. Book's A True Story. Evelyn's Fridge Detox. I'll never forget Evelyn, an 81-year-old retired librarian with a sharp wit and an aching body. She didn't smoke, didn't drink, and ate what she thought was a clean diet. But she felt tired every afternoon, her knees hurt constantly, and her digestion was sluggish. When we went over her daily habits, everything looked fine, until we inspected her fridge. Inside were onions stored in plastic, garlic turning green, a half-eaten avocado gone stringy, rock-hard bread, a cloudy jar of honey, and tomatoes that had lost their smell. She told me her fridge was where freshness lived. What we found was food that had lost its healing power. I asked her to completely reimagine how she stored her staples. She moved her root vegetables to the pantry, bought a simple mesh bag for garlic and onions, kept tomatoes stem-side down on a ceramic plate, and froze her bread in pre-sliced bundles. She even stored avocados in a bowl near apples to time their ripening. Within just 1 month, Evelyn returned for a follow-up. Her digestion had improved. Her knees were less stiff. She wasn't napping every afternoon. But what she kept repeating was this: food finally tastes like food again. Key takeaways and lessons learned. The lesson here isn't to fear your refrigerator. It's to understand its limits. It's to recognize that modern convenience has made us forget that real food is living, and living things don't always belong in the cold. When you refrigerate foods like avocados, tomatoes, bananas, onions, garlic, or even coffee, you may be disrupting enzyme activity, triggering chemical reactions that create harmful byproducts, diminishing vitamins your body desperately needs, sacrificing the natural healing potential of your meals. And most tragically, you won't even taste the difference until your body feels it. Brain Lesson 3: Food is medicine if you let it be. At its core, this isn't about storage. It's about respecting food as medicine. We spend so much time talking about what foods to eat, but not enough time on how we handle them after purchase. Because no superfood can help you if you've stripped it of its nutrients before it ever reaches your fork. Respect the natural design of food. Understand its chemistry. Match your storage method to its biological nature, not your kitchen habits. And in return, your food will support your health, sharpen your mind, and extend your vitality. Final thought. Your refrigerator is a tool, not a solution. The next time you unpack your groceries, pause for a moment. Ask yourself not what's convenient, but what's alive, what's vulnerable to cold, what needs air, not a sealed box. Because sometimes the best medicine isn't in your cabinet. Which one shocked you most? A question that changes everything. I often ask my patients a simple question: which of these shocked you the most? And the answers are always different. For some, it's the idea that bananas lose 80% of their vitamin C in a few days. For others, it's discovering that tomatoes literally shut down their flavor-producing genes in the cold. But most of all, what truly shocks them is the realization that they've been unintentionally sabotaging their own health every single day. Not out of laziness, not out of neglect, but simply because no one ever told them. Seedling, you're not too late. You're right on time. If you've been refrigerating these foods for decades, don't feel guilty. You didn't fail. You simply followed what everyone else believed was right. But now you know better. And with that awareness comes incredible power. The power to protect your nutrients, the power to preserve your vitality, the power to age with intention, not surrender. Here, that's what I invite you to do next. Audit your fridge. Open that door and ask yourself, does this belong here? Change just one habit. Maybe start by storing your garlic differently or freeing your avocados. Share this knowledge. Teach your partner, your grandchild, your neighbor. Let wisdom ripple. Leave a comment. Tell me which food surprised you most. I read every single one. Subscribe or save. This is just one part of a broader journey into functional aging, where small, natural shifts create massive health returns. Brain looking ahead. Your health is in the details. You don't need supplements costing hundreds of dollars. You don't need magic smoothies or imported berries from halfway across the world. What you do need is understanding. Understanding how your food behaves, how your body receives it, and how little adjustments like proper storage can reduce inflammation, improve energy, and even help you feel young again. Because true aging isn't about your years. It's about your cells and the foods you feed them. Folded hands, thank you. Thank you for staying with me through this entire series. Whether you're watching this as a concerned senior, a caregiver,